What's up, soul warriors? Do you ever find yourself stuck in the same unhealthy relationships, the same arguments, the same hurts, the same experiences? If so, you are not alone. And I want to congratulate you on taking an amazing step towards healing by showing up here tonight. This 4-part series with celebrated conscious recovery, healthy, sober lifestyle, mentor, coach, expert, all around badass, Amy Guerrero, is going to teach you how your trauma affects your romantic and familial relationships and what you can do to start changing that right now. So if you are ready, then like this video, share it out with your friends, your family, your communities, your entire world, and let's go. The Recovery Soul Food Live podcast starts right now. What's up, soul?
You're so fancy.
Look who we got. Oh, my friend, my mentor, my coach, my personal badass, Amy Guerrero. How are you?
I'm doing so well. I'm just so impressed with all of your glam. I was just like, holy shit, can Elsie just go around and introduce me everywhere and then have the smashing picture and the whole thing, please?
I went through I did a lot of stalking to get that awesome picture of you. And I tried so many in that. And I was like, nope, not the one. Nope, not the one. That's it right there. Because that's how you come at this thing. You know, that's how you come at healing for people. And I know personally, for those of you who may not know, you know, I myself went through personal mentoring and coaching with Amy's program, and my life has changed in so many ways. And it wasn't even happening all right there in it. There were so many things that happened then, but then the way it just kept going even after our time was done. I mean, it was just like, I just couldn't believe it. And so I'm happy to have you here. And, you know, relationships are something that we all struggle with pre-addiction. And, you know, you and I know for a fact that addiction is not the main problem. It's all those deep roots of trauma and unhealed generational trauma and learned helplessness and just all of these things that come from that. And we struggle. We just do with getting ourselves physically better. And now what do we do with this side? And so I'm grateful to have you here. There was nobody else ever that was going to do this series. This is going to be a 4-part series. It's starting now. This is number 1. And for the next 4 weeks, we're going to visit with Amy. She's going to talk to us about so much. And the incentive really, if you guys stay with us till the end of this entire series, there'll be a live question and answer time that you'll get to talk with Amy yourself and ask her questions. So you guys, while we're going through this series and while you guys are with us, be taking notes on some things that are maybe happening in your lives, your relationships, what questions you really want to ask. And I think that it would be a really great time on our last episode to let you all show up and really ask those questions and really get to meet somebody who has dedicated her life to helping people heal from deep trauma. So, Amy, welcome to the Recovery Soul Food Podcast again. And I'm so grateful to have you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I just, I mean, I get like very emotional because, first of all, to just witness your transformation and to get to be here now with you. And I love what you said, Elsie, that, you know, everything that I do, everything from just clicking live on Instagram or Facebook, it's like, I want to teach everyone how to do this for themselves for the rest of their lives. And my heart just like wants to bounce out of my body right now, because that's what it's all about. Like learning this stuff, releasing the shame and the guilt, and having a lifetime of freedom. And the more of us doing that together, that's how I just believe that healthy, conscious, sober relationships will change the world.
Oh, I'm with you.
Yeah. And it's that progression of what you learned when we were working together one-on-one, playing together one-on-one, laughing a lot together one-on-one. And then you're like, I don't know. And then like 3 weeks later, you're like, doot, doot. Okay, I got it. I'm ready for more. Right. And it's just like that little integration, that practice, that consistent aligned action that you continue to take in your life. Like you look different from when I first met you.
Oh man.
In so many ways. And I mean, it's just freaking amazing. So yeah, like the shit works.
It does.
Yeah. And I love what you said about bringing up questions. And it'd be awesome if like you and I can both just work to look through Facebook and things like that and see questions as well, and then write them down in our documents so that we make sure that we're answering. Because y'all, we're here for you.
Absolutely.
We're here for you. Like Elsie and I we can have conversations all day long. And like we really want you to take some practical solutions out of everything that you learn through the next 4 weeks and beyond. I mean, I ain't going nowhere, and neither is Elsie.
Nowhere, because this is my life. You know, when you come from, and we've discussed this a lot, when you come from the traumatic backgrounds, my background was just so absolutely traumatic. Coming from that, being so covered up in addiction as a coping mechanism for all of that, and being able to sit here now and feel as healthy as I do in my body and my mind and my soul and my spirit, in my relationships, in my work. I mean, you know, to do that, that's huge to me, because, you know, I know where I was, and that's all I want to give people back, is to say, hey, this shit works. And let's do this, because if we stay focused in just one area, if it just stays about not drinking, not drugging, not, you know, going into addictive habits, if that's all it stays about, you're just denying yourself a coping mechanism, and you're not healing. So you're just suffering. It just, and you know this about me, I made an absolute bond with myself. No more suffering for nothing. No more just plain out suffering. I want to do something with whatever I'm going through. There has to be an end result. And, you know, even if it is just being with that, because Amy taught me a lot about just being with those feelings, because immediately from trauma place, we want to run from those feelings. Like we somehow think in the program that we're not supposed to feel uncomfortable, and we're not supposed to feel feelings, that's the whole point. So we want to get clean and not feel feelings. So somebody give us the answer to that. It don't exist. It just doesn't. And our relationships in our lives, you know, not even just romantic. So many times we use the word relationship, and we automatically go to romantic relationships. But these family relationships, you know, you're coming out of active addiction. That family was likely already a little bit, messed up before you went there, and it's probably still sitting there, if not worse. We got to learn how to be in that. And that's why I brought you here today, because let's talk about, like, what are the relationship basics that we all need to really know about relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing all of that too. It's just, I just want to start with just right with what you said. One of the relationship basics is how you relate to one thing is how you relate to everything.
Sure is.
And, there's so much unconscious patterning and behaviors that are happening because, and I'm going to get all science and nerdy for a lot here. Yeah. So, 90% of our decisions are being made from our subconscious mind, from our habits, from the rituals that we have in our life. And the reason that I call the process that I take people through regrooving is because we're actually regrooving these pathways to the body-mind connection. So I'm going to really try to talk in the most simple terms today as possible, because that's what it is. It's like we've created these pathways into our relationships that feel really comfortable and well-grooved, well-paved. And they do start in our family systems. They start with our parents. They start with our mom. Yep. Because we're birthed from that womb. So we, something that we say in the trauma world often is all things lead back to mom.
Yeah. Poor mom.
whether you know your mom or you don't know your mom, that's irrelevant. It's still all things lead back to that. You came from that womb space, and you came from your grandmother's womb space, and blah, 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 all the way down. So when we talk about ancestral trauma, when we talk about all of those things, we're talking about the biology and the chemistry of just like, this is just real.
Yeah.
Because we came from that womb space, y'all. Right? So when we talk about relationship basics, one thing that I always presence is like, okay, and if you're relating to your money in that way, or you're relating to your food in that way, how are you relating to your lover? How are you relating to your parents? Yeah. How are you relating to your coworkers? And I can pull through the common lines almost in like 5 minutes, right?
Yeah.
I'm just like, you do. And, another relationship basic is that how you relate to one thing is how you relate to everything. All of this starts somewhere. And I come from that trauma lens. And so when I think about relationships, I'm like, it starts with your nervous system and your attachment system.
Yeah.
And, we create so many maladaptive behaviors in our childhood because of the attachment wounds that we have from our family systems. And so often a lot of the trauma happens between in utero and before even 4 years old. Yeah. And whether or not you have a memory of it or not doesn't matter. Your body remembers it. Yeah. And somehow we start creating patterns and behaviors, and we start relating to things in ways that then get grooved into our system.
Yeah.
And then our relationship basics are like, oh, she, I only date crazy women, or she's fucking cray cray. Excuse me.
Yeah.
I use direct language, y'all. She's fucking cray cray. He's a narcissist. We start labeling fucking everything.
Yeah.
And when we use these labels to label everything, we get away from the root cause of what is actually fucking happening. And it's like, owie, ouch. Like, I have a little wound. You have a little wound. And until we both presence it, then we ain't going to have a healthy relationship.
Yep.
So, relationship basics is first, how you relate to one thing is how you relate to everything. Your nervous system, your state really matters.
Yeah.
Knowing your attachment system and your attachment pattern matters. And then understanding like that rupture and fights are going to happen like a lot, and they're safe to happen if you know how to repair.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And that's one of the big takeaways and I just wanted to bring it on and presence it in the first 15 minutes, because, people always ask me like, what's the number one thing? And I'm like, if you don't take anything else from whatever I'm teaching, please take learning how to repair. Like, learn how to repair. And it takes practice, and practice makes progress. Right? We
Yes.
never do this shit perfect, y'all.
Thank you.
We
Thank you.
never, and as a matter of fact, perfection is a response to trauma. So, there's just so much in there. You tell me where you want to go next.
There's so much in there because, it reminds me of, we talk about like learned helplessness, and, we both, I'm rereading right now, The Body Keeps a Score. And, so again, we think of that experiment with the animals and how people don't escape even when they have the out. And so I'm really glad. I want people to really understand how much their trauma, because I used to be a person that believed, and a lot of my family and friends believe still, well, I'm not thinking about those things. I've moved on. I'm not thinking about those things. And yet you see from the outside, and I was in this, I believe that too. If I'm not thinking about my trauma, it's not affecting me. But yet my life is a complete and utter mess. But I've already gone through that. I don't think about that. I haven't dealt with that. That's what I really would love for you to focus on, like maybe explain that learned helplessness and how trauma is affecting you.
Absolutely.
Us.
Yeah. So first of all, like, because I meet everything with a lot of compassion, I just want to change the word learned helplessness.
Please.
Right? Like, again, victim mentality, learned helplessness, all of these things, they work, and they're diagnostic codes that insurance cover payments of things.
Right.
However, like, the way that I really look at it is that you learned how to keep yourself safe.
Yes.
And it's not working anymore. Right? So I would say that at least 20 people reach out to me a week saying, I'm in a really unhealthy relationship. And the first thing I'm going to ask them is, are you in physical or danger? Right?
Yeah.
Because often they are. And then, of course, I'm going to say, like, let's get into a support line. And then there's so much shame that immediately comes up.
That's our epidemic.
Like, right. And I'm like, whoa. It's okay. Thank you for sharing it with me. Let me give you some resources. And this, in my opinion, is not learned helplessness, right? This is the complexity of trauma, because we learn this behavior probably really young, where there was an abusive parent or an abusive teacher, an abusive adult, maybe even just an abusive sibling touching you, yelling at you, calling you the same ugly names week after week, month after month, day after day. And the nervous system is so activated by this that it just goes into a freeze response.
Yeah.
So it's not, in my opinion, learned helplessness. It's like, it is not safe to move.
It's not. And
so we got to slowly teach the nervous system that it's safe, and then meet the nervous system where it's at.
And I love that you said that. And I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I really want to focus in on what you said about that, because so many of us, we jump into situations where we want to learn everything right now. Now, I'm talking about this from very personal. I want to learn it now. Give me the tools. Let me take this off and figure this out, And honestly, what you said has been the greatest lesson. Is these are things that are having to be retrained, and no matter how much you can retrain the brain, the nervous system comes along and it needs a little more practice. And that's very important, I think, for a lot of people in recovery to understand, is that whole instant gratification, it don't live in recovery. And so it's okay that these things take time, and it's good to practice these things.
Absolutely. And to experience pleasure with it. Right. So, like the instant gratification thing, and they're like, oh, you're such a fucking addict. And I'm like, oh, I could punch somebody when they say that. I'm just like, you don't know. Right. First of all, every animal and humans are animals. We all want the quick dopamine hit and we've built a whole world around quick dopamine hits and dings and dangs and all of the things. So it's not an addict's fucking behavior, y'all.
Right.
And stop saying that.
I know.
So, it's just a reward system. It's Pavlov's dogs. It's just like, duh, like that's what we do.
Yeah.
Right. But to get into the deeper part of what you're saying, it's like, what if we titrate small wins and have that gratification? Because so often what happens to a traumatic brain and body is that the pleasure centers get very just injured, if like just to put it simply, they're injured. And so the pathways are just not connected. And it takes that nervous system safety to start being able to connect those pathways to make it a sustainable way of life, Thrive in Recovery, Sober Relationship School, everything that you've learned and how you started, right? It's a way of life. Like you're still building the building blocks from the foundation that we laid in the several months that we were working one-on-one together.
Yeah.
And that's the whole purpose of all of the work that I do. I'm just like, I don't, like I want to know you forever. And I want you to continue to come to my programs because they're always going to evolve. However, I want you to freaking learn this shit and teach it to your friends and your family and to everyone so that ripple effect is created. And so many of the people that I support are coaches. And so I get to watch like their clients and I'm just like, oh my God, this is so cool. Because then I'm like, I'm helping them and then they're helping 10 people and 20 people and 30 people. And I'm like, oh my gosh, right now, like today, in my world, like I'm literally supporting through the people I support and then the people they support, like almost over 500 people, like right now in this moment. Yeah, it's amazing. It's changing the world. Yes. So, in order to really support the nervous system to feel safe, we need that high quality connection with other people. And often, if you had something happen in your childhood that created an unsafety with other people and you developed kind of an avoidant way of dealing with the world, then you have this like, I've got this on my own attitude.
Yeah.
And the nervous system doesn't feel safe to open up. And of course, I'll always meet you where you're at. And that's very natural. And so we first discover like, what's the nervous system doing? What's the attachment system doing? And then how can we slowly titrate little bits of safety so that we can do this more often? And then the safer that you feel, the more you're able to do. And then guess what? Whenever you're punching through the next glass ceiling or up leveling, bam, all your shit's back. And you're like, oh no, I thought I already did this. And I'm like, you did already do this, and it's all back again because you're about to up level. And so your nervous system is trying to keep you safe again. And so it's trying to go back into those old maladaptive patterns.
And knowing that is so helpful when you are going through that and being supported during that. I have to say that this year when my main abuser passed away, this happened to me. So like right before he started passing away, I started getting all these things. I had this thing, I need to write him a letter. I need to do all this. And I kept writing this letter and realized I was so upset with myself because I was like, wait a minute, I thought I did this forgiveness. Why do I feel this way? And I thought, I'm so grateful. Again, the work we did has done so many different things in my life by working on myself. My wife is now awake after these 7 years, and so that I had this wonderful support system and I thought of you often. And it was knowing that, okay, this is that thing where, that level is trying to still hang on because we've built some comfort there, but we're still going to this next level because we have the knowledge that this is what's happening. We're not just floundering out in the sea, so that's important.
And Elsie, I just want to bring a lot of compassion as well, because the body does keep the score, as Bessel teaches us.
Mm-hmm.
And him passing to wherever he went to out of this world, your body whether or not you have the conscious memory of it or not, your body started to remember all of the inappropriate things
Oh, it did.
that you felt.
Yeah.
And when people say like, oh, you don't remember that, that's not how it happened, I'm like, oh, you do not get to tell someone that ever. I mean, it makes me so emotional because
Right.
we know what we know. And if you're working with someone who ever questions what you know, what your body's telling you, you know, in that relationship, right? Because that is not safe. Like we want like to teach you to know what you know. The details don't matter. How can we meet that response of your physical body where it's at? I don't
Yes.
care about the details of what happened. I'm just like, oh, you activated. Let's hold some space around that.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't have to come up here into our brains to try to think about what's happening, because that's when the negative thought loops come. That's when the shame comes. That's when the guilt comes. When we take it out of the body and into the mind and try to figure it out. And believe me, I spent years trying to figure shit out. And that's what led to like my suicidal, just bananas couple of years of just like, fuck this. Like, I do not want to live if I have to live like this. And then whoosh, something in me was like, Amy, come home to your body and make sure that you advocate for yourself so that whatever practitioners you're working with, they're meeting you where you're at. And so I had to yell at a lot of people. I had to fire a lot of people. I had to quit. I had to walk out. I had to do a lot of crazy stuff.
Good.
And it was because like I knew that I knew something in my body. I couldn't explain it and it didn't matter. Right. And so if you feel that way, you're not alone, and whatever you're feeling is real.
Yes. 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 You know, I'm with you on thinking that, you know, I really believe that shame is probably the biggest epidemic that we have going on in our human race at this point. I think shame is dangerous. It holds us back from being able to be honest with others and ourselves. I think there's something very valuable in doing a lot of work about shame. That was another thing that I appreciate about our work together is, you know, is really having a safe container to say things that, you know, we feel shame about, and not feel like we're going to shock another into going, oh, well, that's my limit. I just can't work with you because that's too much. And, you know, that's what the body is telling you, along with, you know, every fight or flight. I mean, I did a video on Wednesday about being, you know, are you stuck in a survival mindset? And I see that mindset, as we've already kind of talked about, that is the brain just doesn't reset sometimes from that fight or flight. According to some of that trauma, it doesn't reset. And we as people that have experienced trauma have to sometimes work a little bit harder to manually reset this switch. Like I gave that analogy as a switch.
Yeah. Can we just pause right there for a moment, Elsie, and like make a note of where you're going with this? Because I just want to give a practical tip. So if we're stuck in the same thought loop, right? The mind isn't getting off of that thought, and that thought is telling you, I am bad, I am wrong. Actually, it's not about resetting the mind. It's about coming back to the body, right? It's about like releasing it here. So it's about taking, I mean, something really simple that you can do is take a 4-second inhale and a 5-second exhale. Or turn on some music and sing, right? Anything that we can do to engage the vagus nerve is going to support the body to relax. So the fight flight is going to stop in the physical body. Those hormones that are being released are going to slow down, and it's going to give you an opportunity to interrupt that thought pattern and then come back to the regrooved place of, oh, wait, I'm actually amazing. And I was in the midst of a trauma response. That's all that was happening here. I was highly fucking activated. I was about to lose my shit, and now I'm back. And you're engaging back into your and your neofrontal cortex, your prefrontal cortex, the smarter parts of your brain, period. And you're just like, oh, So what happens is people try to reset their mind, and then they get deeper and deeper and deeper and down that rabbit hole of confusion, and then more confirming evidence of how bad you are,
Yeah.
or how bad the situation is or the people are, and then you're getting angrier and more frustrated, and it's like, whoa, let's look for some disconfirming evidence. And the only way that we can do that is if we come back to our body.
To present. Yeah.
And chill. Yeah, and not even presence. It's just like, oh God, right? Like, oh, I'm alive. Woo. I mean, when I was like really super heavy in my confusion and in my pain, like my thought life was loud. And
So
it does not
loud.
matter how many yoga classes I went to and how many, the only thing that could turn it off was a certain amount of alcohol or drugs. And it turned it off when it did. But then as soon as that would wear off, it'd come back louder. And I was just like, oh my God, I'm such a piece of shit. I'm such a piece of shit. I'm such a piece of shit. There's no way I'm going to recover from this. Like, how am I going to live in the world? How am I going to face people? Blah, blah, blah. All shame.
Yep. Every bit.
I am bad. And then when I came to my body, I was like, I was reacting to things around me.
Mm-hmm.
And now I respond. I mean, imperfectly, like I react, believe me. You know? And so beautiful example. And then that's a really practical tool that people can take away from this, because how many times are you with the person that you're having sex with, that you're like totally in love with, and they piss you off, and like in a second you just like, you're seeing red, and maybe you don't even know it, but your body's responding to a time where someone yelled at you when you were little, a time where, you know, a teacher made you wrong or made you feel stupid, a time where you were in treatment and you felt like an asshole, or, you know, like whatever. It has nothing to do with your partner.
Yep.
And you're seeing red and you're like, ah! And you're just creating more and more and more. And I'm like, oh, wait, let's just slow down. Come back to your body. Take a few deep breaths. Like, no one's there right now. You're not there. You're up here, you're back here in the younger parts of your brain, very young, like reptilian parts of brain. And you might not even be mad at that person. You're having a reactive response, which is totally natural. There's nothing wrong with it.
Right.
Like, how quickly can you start to come back and repair and realize, like, ain't no relationship perfect.
Beautiful. I love the way that because you answered one of my questions, because I was going to ask you, how much would you say that shame plays into unhealthy relationships? And so that, you know, that really kind of came into some of that question. Do you have anything else to add there?
I do.
A lot. I know you do. That's why this has to be a 4-part series, everybody, because there's so much here and we don't think about it. We think bad relationship or good relationship. We make things with labels so, you know, boxed in. That's why I needed you to do this.
Yeah, and it feels, I just, you know, wherever you are, we'll meet you there, because it feels safer to put it in a box. And
yes,
I don't know, she's crazy. I remember one time in the, like, before I got sober, in the midst of like my I knew that it was going to be time soon, that like something had to change, and I was healing my trauma. And I remember one of my friends like had left their phone by accident, like out, and then the text came and they're like, oh, you checked that for me? And it was actually a text about me, and they're like, are you at Crazy Amy's? And I was like, oh my God, that's so hurtful. You know, it was easier to just label me in that way, right? And then like they were talking behind my back, obviously, and like thinking these things about me. So what did it do? It brought up all this shame.
Yep.
Right. And so like there's 2 ways to deal with that. 1, either get really angry, so go into that fight flight. 2, repress it, go into a more dorsal place, and then make yourself more wrong. So my trauma in particular was, I am bad at my core. It's always my fault. And so I was a repressor. I would see things like that and I'd be like, I don't get angry. I would still bring it up. And I'm like, oh, I can see why you think I'm crazy. I'm so bad. you know, I'm going through a really hard time right now, but obviously you don't see it, you know, blah, 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 you know, and like totally making myself wrong and shameful. And really, like, it was just weeks after I'd gone to meet my birth mom. I was not in a good place. Like, I wasn't talking about it properly, all of these things. And it's such a great example of like me, like making myself even smaller, being really hurt, feeling so much shame. And then going and partying with my friends that night that were talking about me like this, you know, so not really trusting them, but pretending as if everything was okay, because at the end of the day, it was all my fault. So if anyone's ever felt this or had the other response where they just get so angry and make everyone wrong and then get a couple bottles and then just lock themselves in their house until they calm down, like seeing red, it's all a response to that trauma and that shame. And then that's perpetuating that shame because people are out there labeling it so that they feel safer. Well, it's safer to call Amy crazy than to look at my own shit. Right?
Yep.
And these people that I saw this text happen with, like, one's trying to get sober right now, and the other one I don't really talk to, but it's just so interesting because we all have our shit and it's okay.
Yep.
And I'm not mad about it. It's just like,
right.
I really remember when that happened.
Yeah.
And another thing that shame does is it takes you out of your essence, of your feminine or masculine energy essence. And you wear another mask. And so there's this whole other thing that's happening where you're breaking yourself, you're fragmenting yourself to be liked by other people, and you're going further away from your natural essence.
Oh yeah.
And it's all shame-based.
Every bit.
I mean, and like I said, thank goodness this is a 4-part series because I can go on and on about that. However, it's such a big thing that I want to presence in our first call, because components of a healthy, conscious relationship with intimate partners, especially, is creating that polarity. Whether it's two women together that are gender identified as women, whether it's a man and a woman that are gender identified that way, whether it's someone who doesn't identify with gender, there's still the essence of polarity that really makes a relationship juicy and yummy. Yeah. And we need that. That's definitely, we don't need it. There's so many relationships that go without it, but to have a really healthy, conscious relationship, it's really nice to have. And you're probably desiring it.
Yeah.
You just don't know how to get there. And that's something that we teach in Sober Relationship School, and of course in one-on-one coaching with me as well. And that essence or that shame that's like, how dare you be so feminine? And I'm like, no, I'm not going to apologize for that anymore. You know, like, I'm going to be disorganized. I'm going to be chaotic. I'm going to make a lot of noise. I'm going to like throw my hands around. You're going to know that my essence is feminine. Where most of my life I was like, I got this. Get out of my way. I've got this. You know, always like running the show. And that's not who I really am. I'm so much softer than that.
How beautiful is it to actually embrace your true essence? I mean, it's probably the most freeing, amazing. I mean, I don't even think there are words to explain. It's like coming home to yourself whenever you actually are aware of your true essence. And, you know, that's a beautiful story. And I appreciate you sharing that, because it really drove that point home. And, you know, all that you're sharing right now means so much to me, because like I can feel that in my body, just that coming home, that, you know what, I'm going to be me, and I'm grateful to know myself. And all this time I've been apologizing for, you know, being, you know, those parts of me. It's like having this amazing friend that you never really let yourself get to know. And that is just beautiful. And I really appreciate you sharing that with us. And you know that means a lot to me. So how important now is our relationship with ourself first and foremost, because, you and I did a lot of work on this, and it really changed my own relationships with, my wife, with my family, even with my son. It building that relationship with self seems to be very important for you to even understand what kind of relationship, or for me, it was about understanding who I am in a relationship, and what was learned roles, and what is who I really am, and getting to know your needs. So talk to us a little bit about the importance of that relationship with self in other relationships.
That's a great question. And again, I'll just kind of give the cliff notes. So, the first thing that I just want to presence is that often it's really scary to get to know self.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, again, where, especially through the processes that I take people through, it's through that trauma-informed lens, the connection with others is really important to support that connection to self.
Yeah.
Because if you've had any dissociative patterns in your life where, like, I could just poof, go away. I knew how to get out of this body, even though I was like a yoga teacher and all these things. I was like, oh, fastest way out of this, get the hell out of here, right? Protect myself.
Yeah.
And so it is very important to get to know self, and the relationship with self is so important. And again, like, I just always want to just presence, like, wherever you are, it's okay. Because it might be the scariest thing in the world, especially if there's a lot of complex trauma, to actually get to know self. And you might have been told your whole life that you're bad and that it's dangerous. And so the nervous system might stop you. And so that's what's so beautiful about group coaching and group therapy and group work, and also the relationship like that we had was something that really supported you. So this connection, like, something I'm very conscious of is, like, I'm going to be that first kind of person that maybe you see yourself through, because I'm marrying it back to you, that you're like, oh shit, here I am. And then that settling in of the nervous system feels safe to go, all right, this is actually what I want to say. And then you're able to have that level of honesty with self. And then we build from there. So the relationship to yourself is very important. However, some people go out in the world, and there's a lot of this on Instagram and in kind of the older psychology books of, like, you've got to love yourself before you love anyone else.
Right.
And I'm like, that's not true. Like, we're all learning to love ourselves. We're all learning to love ourselves. And actually, through loving someone else, then that's how we learn to love ourselves more. I mean, I just was thinking about the movie 28 Days. It just came into my head with Sandra Bullock. And, they all get out of treatment and they're like, you got to have a plant, and then you got to have a dog, and then you can date people or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's the connection from a trauma lens. It's the connection to the plant.
Yeah.
Connection to the animal. It's not like you got to go through these things and then you don't sober or single for a year in your first year of sobriety. Like, no, it's about learning to build that connection and to feel safe to keep building that connection. And often, from sexual trauma, physical trauma, like complex emotional trauma, it doesn't feel safe to build the connection. So we got to titrate the safety in, get the nervous system on board, and then start to really build those longer term connections. So super great question. And it can be so confusing because there's so much different information out there. And I'm really giving it to you from the best of my ability through that trauma lens and how I see it and feel it imperfectly. I mean, I'm not perfect.
I think that's so much. We get caught up so much on the language of things that it does seem that we take so much literally. And I do see how my relationships have changed since I began. And I don't know that I would say the word loving myself as much as it's been accepting my essence. I love what you said, accepting my essence and then building safety within myself. My relationships have really changed and my connection to others have really deepened. But again, there has to be that safety, within. And I'm still working on these things because, some of the biggest, scariest, relationships, things that we have to face, they're harder to do. But then in the moments that you do them, there is such a freedom that takes place. There's just, things just kind of shift in place in a lot of this work. So, I see where that comes from, but I think the language, and that's what I love about you. You've probably noticed I've thrown a few things at you here in this interview to get your take on the language, because I'm in the process in my own life of breaking away labels. Labels limit. They really make our brain go to a place of just definition, and then once we define that as this thing, it seems like that's as big or as it can get. And so I think that labels, I want to get past those some. So, I like that, that you have given us a lot of different things here. How does
let me say one thing about that. Yeah. It's like, it's necessary for us to continue to presence the label, because that's how people associate with it currently.
It is.
Yeah. It is. So sometimes I get like too much in my trauma-informed talk, and people are like, what the fuck are you talking about, Amy? I'm like, oh, hold on. That's right. Because that's still, we're slowly transforming that.
We are.
I'm so glad that you brought them up, and I encourage you to continue, because that's how your listeners and my listeners understand it.
Yeah.
And again, we want to meet them where they're at, and then also lay out like, oh, you could think about it like this instead of that. Just like I don't use the word addiction. I'm like, oh, you coped with.
Yeah. I don't like to use it either, but then sometimes you get so, when you're trying to share things on a larger scale,
it's
like, what?
You got to use it. You got to use it. Yeah.
And I just hate it. Like I contort all kind of crazy to use it. And I'm just like, ugh. But, you're very, very right. I had this conversation with another friend of mine about the whole trans thing and, it being an identity. And I'm like, yeah, I get that, you don't want to identify as just that, but we've got to use that. It's got to be referenced, because we've got to change, a lot of the way the public sees other people. So therefore I have to introduce this. That has to be part of who I am. And so, yeah,
well, I'm going to give you some power and say it doesn't have to be. You're a freaking powerful man, and you're choosing to lead with the courageous action that you've been taking to do this for yourself, so that you can feel in your true essence, physically and spiritually and mentally and all of the things. So it takes a lot of courage to do that, and you do not have to. You're choosing to.
I am very much choosing to. I am very, very, very much choosing to, because, I want to know, I just want to know me and the happiness that is me. And, that's what I want to know. And I didn't get clean and sober to, not understand that. And I'm grateful to be where I am today and who I am today. And exactly, at this moment, sitting right here in everything that's happening in my life. I'm loving every minute of it. Not that it all feels wonderful and like a nice massage and a warm hot bath, but it is all a part of this beautiful thing that is my life. And I'm grateful, very grateful and happy for that. And could not be here without the work that we've done. Trauma is big, it's complex, it goes deep, it's okay for us to look at that. It's okay for us to step into that and heal that. And it's really okay for us to reach out for help with that, and support and mentorship. And all of those things are so different, counseling. And I'd like for you, I did not plan this part, but it's on my heart. And I'd like for you to maybe explain what the difference in mentorship and coaching and therapy and those things are, if you don't mind, real short.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the best way for me to describe it's going to just be through my own lived experiences, instead of like trying to give you some clinical definitions of bullshit, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So I don't know about any of you all. The very first time I went to therapy was in like kindergarten or first grade. There was things going on in my family system. So I met with the school counselor. And we were very much like just talked to and maybe played with some toys or something. And then I went to therapy a few other times, and then I got to college and I really started to like go deep dive into therapy. And I just noticed that like I was talking and talking and talking in circles. Like just I wasn't getting anywhere. And in my therapy experiences, I was manipulating because I was only telling like part of the truth.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, the amount of money that I wasted, right, on therapy, not because of a lack of, there wasn't anything wrong with the people that I was supporting. Maybe I chose these people because I knew I could manipulate them, right? I chose these people because, it looked good, but I knew they would only take me so far. And like my nervous system just wanted to stay stuck. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But when I started to step into coaching and mentoring, and I started to get coached and mentored, I was like taking action. I was being consistent. And I started doing somatic experiencing in college, so I was really fortunate. I just happened to have these teachers that were coming around me, and they started to mentor me and guide me. And I was like, oh, wow, like now I'm seeing progress, and because they didn't have the confines of not being able to say certain things and having all the legal mambo jumbo with the city and state and country and blah, 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 they were just really direct with me. Like, you're fucking lying. And I'm like, oh, totally am. Thank you for calling me out. I can work with this all day long. Right. And so that then started to support me to feel safe to start like actually physically taking that consistent aligned action and then being held accountable in a whole new way. And so what I did with Thrive in Recovery is just kind of married a lot of these things that I've learned for my lifetime and my lived experiences. I think one of the reasons that coaching and mentoring with me specifically is so highly, like we get shit done. Like just this week alone, I'm like, oh my gosh, my clients are blowing my mind. And it's because there's just so much trust and so much like nervous system resonance, right? Those mirror neurons are just like, yes, 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 yes. And so something that I really love about coaching and mentoring is that often you choose someone that has been through the same things that you've been through. And so, I mean, you know this because you did this with me. You can't lie to me.
Yeah.
I did that better than you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to sense it, and I'm highly trained in picking that all up, and I'm going to call it out.
Yeah.
And sometimes it hurts. However, I call it out in a beautiful way. I'm all polyvagal informed, so I'm going to be like, da, da, da. But that's the biggest for me in my lived experiences. I was just like going in circles until I started somatic experiencing and more trauma informed things. And that I started in college. So I've been in that somatic world since for a long time, like over 20 years, which is bananas. I'm like, holy shit, I'm going to be 46 years old next month. Oh my God, I've been around.
Join the club. Join the club.
So even if like people are still like, oh, I really want a therapist, ask a lot of questions. Like, choosing a therapist, like I actually create lists for people of all the questions to ask their therapist before they start working with them. Like interview lots of people so that and do the same thing with your coaches. Do the research. Make sure you have a conversation with them. I'm always like, ask me hard questions when we're on our first call, because I have to say yes to you and you say yes to me as well. And then we make the investment and then we go running together. We're so afraid with, I was raised that like anyone in a white coat has authority over me and they know best. And that's fucking bullshit.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. And oh gosh, one of the doctors in treatment was like, whoa, you gave me the riot act, whatever it is. And I was like, yeah, because like, I don't trust you. Yeah. Right. And so I'm going to like blow holes in everything you just said and get me somebody that's actually going to be able to support me. Just because you went to school does not mean that you get it. It doesn't. And, I'm going off a little bit here because I'm so passionate about it. But those are the questions to ask, right? When you're going to your therapist, is this like, oh, right, are you going to teach me the textbook? Are you going to hold that space? Or like, are you going to go in there with me and really support me to have a transformation?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's safer because, I mean, we're all human. So we
Yeah.
all have our patterns. So it's safer to hide behind the textbooks and put it in a container and just be like, oh, you're ... diagnostic code 89.0256.
Mm-hmm.
Here's some medication.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. All you're doing is masking the symptoms. There's deeper stuff going on there. And I am hyper focused on the deeper stuff to give you a lifetime of freedom.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And gosh, it works and it produces, and I don't think there's anything wrong with having both. I think when you are ready to heal, and you are really just ready, because I was a lot like that. I was like, I don't want anybody I can bullshit. I went in looking for a counselor, a therapist, and I was like, okay, well, here's my criteria. Don't give me anybody weak. Don't give me anybody fresh out of school, because my pattern is, I will just annihilate them. I've been doing this too long. I need somebody that will call me on my shit. And, I had to stand up for those things. And, I can say I went through a few getting to the ones, and all of this stuff together, mixed with my sheer wanting to live a life that was healed, because the alternative had kept me in the patterns of addiction over and over and over again, and shame, and it just no more. I just had to do something else. And so it's very, very important for people to build your recovery, build your program. Don't just stay locked in something and you feel in your heart that it's not enough, or there's still, something missing. Don't be afraid to build your recovery your way, and what it looks like, what it works, and how it works. And so, gosh, there's just so much here, so much here. Real quick question, because I know that we're running up on our time, and I want you to tell us about, because you're doing something amazing right now. You're getting ready to enroll for Sober Relationship School, right? Tell us about that, and I will ask this quick question before we go. But it'll be really, really quick, and then we'll pick it up next week.
Absolutely. Yes. So yes, y'all, if you're listening right now, it's January 30th, I think, right now today. And I am enrolling for Sober Relationship School. Sober Relationship School is basically a group program where you're going to learn all of the things that we've been talking about. You're going to learn about your nervous system, your attachment system. You're going to learn about that essence of your core. You're going to be with like all of these amazing like-minded people doing this with you, being able to ask questions. Yeah. And really like learning how to integrate this, learning how to repair the ruptures real time, because so many people get into fights. Someone just like filed a divorce and it's finalized while we've been in school. Like, I mean, shit happens. We make shit real together, and we go through this healing journey. You make lifetime friends. You get a lot of one-on-one support with me, and it's a badass program. I'm so proud of it. Like, if you're wanting to come into support, this is a great entry point. And the cool thing is that there's a group of people that are going to be there when school starts for you, that are mentors that have been through the program, that are going to be able to support you and watch you and help you thrive, because we thrive together. Yeah, exactly. So if you want to build more courage, more confidence, you want to get the love you want, and you want to choose to do this through that conscious sober lens, Sober Relationship School is definitely worth checking out. And I'll give you the links, Elsie, so that you can include them.
Perfect. Because I included in the description where you can find Amy at Instagram, and I'll tell you guys the truth. That's where I found Amy. And I mean, it's, we sometimes look at those things and we don't know what to trust and what not. And I want to just give you my own personal from my heart. I found Amy on Instagram at Thrive in Recovery with Amy. And I knew she was my coach. I had been looking for coaching and mentoring for a few months before. I'd heard all of my legends, my people that I listened to talk about how you needed a mentor and you needed a coach. And I had been looking for that. And when I just happened upon a live that Amy was doing on Instagram, and she made that call to action there at the end, and I knew that I needed to reach out to her, and I reached out to her, and we had this 90-minute. I mean, I thought it was fascinating for us to have a 90-minute complimentary call. Like, you just don't get that. You may get 30 minutes with somebody's cohort or somebody's, in their office, but you don't get that kind of deep. And I just knew something about Amy's passion and dedication to actually seeing me healed and my life thrive, in just that she was willing to give me an hour and a half before I ever said yes. And there was no pressure. Like, she came into that call, I could have walked away from that first call with some great nuggets to begin to put into practice in my life. And it wasn't pressurized. There was no pressure at the end. I mean, it was just, okay, so how do you feel like this? You feel like we'd be a fit? I mean, it was just, I can't say enough. I can't say enough about it. I mean, it really helped change my life. And that's why I wanted to bring Amy on to do this relationship series. And so I'll leave y'all with this question, and we'll pick it up next week.
I'm scared.
Dang it.
My nervous system is activated. What you got for me?
So because I've got some of these people in my audience, and they've really wanted to know this. How does a person who's never experienced addiction have a healthy relationship with someone in recovery, or who still may be struggling in active addiction? So this could be either romantic relationship or even family. We've got a lot of those people in our audience members that are trying to figure out how they have a relationship that's healthy with someone else. So,
Great question. So I'm going to tackle the second part of it first. So second part was, how do I have a healthy relationship with someone who's still in active coping, active addiction?
Yes. Oh, I love that, coping. Yes.
Yeah. So the truth is like, the way to do that is to have really strong, healthy boundaries and to get support. Because if you see that the person is the substance or the behavior in an unhealthy way, and it's time for them to get support on their own, and you jump in to them trying to help them and save them, that's going to become enmeshed. It's going to begin a big old mess. It's going to create a lot of cortisol, stress. It's going to really be messy. So my first thing with that is, like, if you've noticed that this person is like, it's not healthy, the relationship they have with their coping mechanisms, get support for yourself, because that relationship is going to be really difficult to be healthy.
Yes.
So that's the second part. Then the first part is like such a great question. And I feel like we might have to take some time on next week to talk about this more.
For sure.
The first thing that I would just say is, like, be willing to meet the person. Both of you be willing to meet each other where you're at right now. And, there's many couples that I support that one person has never struggled with any kind of coping that brought them to stop the coping mechanism.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting, because one of the things that I always get to witness is that when a person who's not an addict starts dating someone who's in recovery, then they start seeing all of their patterns and they're like, oh shit, maybe I am an addict. Right? Yes. Like, wow, I really lean into this way more than I thought I did. And now I fell in love with somebody who's choosing consciousness. Right. And so this takes a lot of energy from the person who's choosing recovery as well, to really get clear, concise on what you want to share, what you don't want to share, and how you want to talk about it, and how you want it to be talked about with other people, and to be fucking clear with the person that you're dating. And it's your responsibility as the person who's choosing consciousness to advocate for yourself, just like we were talking about earlier. Like, I identify as a conscious, sober woman. That's like how I identify. When someone calls me an addict or an alcoholic, I'm like, please do not call me that. That is not how I identify. Thank you very much. Do not call me a name. Right. And I nip it quickly. And it just happened last week. And I'm like, do not call me an alcoholic. Who the fuck are you? I'm like, no. Oh, I didn't know you're an alcoholic. I'm not. Like, that's not how I identify. No. And so we have to advocate for ourselves, and we'll teach you that in sober relationship school.
Beautiful.
But it becomes just like any other relationship where you have to advocate for what you're all about.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so beautiful. So beautiful to teach people, because that's how we can change the world.
That's how it's going to be done. That's how it's going to be done. Oh my gosh. Amy, thank you so much for being a part of this. Again, it wouldn't even be happening if you weren't available. So thank you for being available, for coming here and sharing your time, your wisdom, your knowledge, your experience, yourself, everything with us, and probably the most amazing audience on in the world ever right here. These soul warriors are beautiful, and I can't wait till next week. And so next week we'll talk about boundaries, and we'll talk about being clear and compassionate and concise and all of those amazing things that are life-changing in and of itself. Again, thank you. You guys connect with Amy at Thrive in Recovery with Amy there on Instagram. I will have the link to Sober Relationship School in the description when I share this video. Again, if you all have any type of questions that you are thinking about now, be sure to put them down in the comments. And again, we're going to have the question and answer session on the 4th one. So make sure that you come to every single one. Same time, same channel. And, we're going to be here to try to support you and love you and just help you know how freaking amazing that you are as a human being on this earth, in this moment, in this time, just as you are. So awesome. I love you, Amy. I'm so grateful for you. I love all of you. So you guys join us next week, Saturday night, 8:45 p.m. Eastern time, whatever that is specific, You take care of that one.
Same place next week, y'all.
That's it. So we love you, and we'll see you later. You guys please share, please subscribe, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye, everybody.
Bye.